Woohoo! Hello, everyone. I am just going to invite Miss Juliet in to join us. Here she comes.
I'm here.
Hello.
I'm here. Hello.
Turn your microphone on.
Had to quickly tidy my bedroom. Yes, I got we're here. Fuck, we're a mess today.
Jesus Christ, so sorry.
Hey, can you see the Instagram messages?
Pardon me, say that again.
Can you see the Instagram messages?
Well, we're live at the moment. No, I cannot see it through here. So if you want to watch us live, the best thing to do is jump over to YouTube, and then we can see your comments coming straight through. So we're just getting people to join us on Instagram at the moment. But if you are on Instagram and you want to join into the conversation, you should absolutely jump into YouTube.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see.
YouTube. That's the best thing. So, hey, welcome. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Instagram. And today we are talking about ancient Egypt and the pyramids and some alternate history and, you know, all of that fun stuff.
And all for my trip to Egypt. So I'm heading up there with my son in November. No set dates as yet, but it's all go. So we're pretty much, we're not doing any big tours. We're going to be backpacking through Egypt. So basically through Petra, Jordan, Petra, and then we're going to go on the other side, and we're basically going to go right from the top kind of down to Abydos, I think, where the helicopter hieroglyphs and stuff are. So that I'm super excited about seeing. That's just like yeah. So we're going to try and get to some, you know, so as many temples and stuff, and some kind of off the beaten track stuff. We don't want to just follow like the touristy things and just go to like the big main attractions. You know, we're doing kind of off the beaten path stuff. My biggest thing with the pyramids of Giza, I really want to go to Minkari's pyramid, which is the smallest one, which is a little bit more exciting for me. So, you know, yes, we'll go and visit the big ones, but yeah, the Minkuri, I keep getting his name Minkuri. Yeah, his little small pyramid, the smallest pyramid, and then he's got like the three other little ones in front, and his wife's supposed to be buried in one, which could be either his half sister or his sister, because he was married to his half sister and his sister. So you know what it's like back in the Egyptian times. They're all very close. I know.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So very, very excited and really interesting, like the background with who built the pyramids. I mean, it's just such an ongoing kind of dilemma. And
Sorry about that too.
Lisa is doing something there.
I was just opening some of my pages, and sorry, it went
Don't do that.
on into that YouTube article. My apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. So incredibly interesting, and so many different theories around it. And you go into, the History Channel and all that sort of stuff of ancient aliens, and oh my Lord, it takes you right down the rabbit holes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then new theories are coming out, and then then on top of that, we've got to be really respectful for the local people and kind of what they believe and stuff like that. So
always come from a place of respect for the Indigenous people, like from New Zealand, Australia, the South Pacific, and with Juliet traveling over to Egypt, it's really important that we maintain that level of respect for the Indigenous people and for their culture and their folklore and their things that they believe in and the things that they have found. And it's really incredibly important that we respect that from a Cryptid Women's Society perspective, but also a personal perspective. Why would you go into someone's backyard and not introduce yourself first, or not ask for permission to walk on their ground, or not, do the right things? And so, if in saying that, Ashra Cat lives in Cairo, and she does all of our amazing social media posts, and aren't they beautiful? Like the reels that she's putting out and the content is so great.
And we're totally like, this is what we're putting up for the Egyptian stuff. If we get anything wrong, just ignore it and do what's right. I don't want to get it wrong.
I mean, it's like saying to someone, oh, you're Māori, but that's fine. Let me just say this wrong, and they just look at you.
Oh my God, like I found that a doco about the Celtic stone wall the other day, and it was obviously an American that was that, and just he absolutely destroyed the saying. I'm like, yep, okay. At least we try and look words up, and I go onto Google. It's like, how do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce this? I still get it wrong sometimes, but
so hard. And we talk about it all the time, being so tough, especially Aboriginal words, because we just have we've got no grounds to stand on when it comes to that stuff.
But I can, being brought up around the Maori language, I can understand the Maori language. I can pronounce. I have a better understanding of how to pronounce words that we, oh my God, Aboriginal stuff. Oh wow, it's a learning process, and I try not to butcher it on a daily basis.
So no doubt she will pop over and butcher some Egyptian words.
Oh my God, yeah. I really want to get hold of some local people, and just and I'm really going to try and get hold of some archaeologists, Egyptologists over there, and have some little kind of interviews. In touch with some tour guides, they do their own little private tour guides, because that's kind of what we want to do. We don't want to do the big ones. We want to kind of stick locally and stuff like that. So there will be camel riding and camel milking, apparently.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's been a challenge that has been set to me, is to milk a camel.
also speaking about milking camels, what a segue. Did anyone see the story that Juliet posted on our Cryptid Women's Society page? It was funny, apparently.
Oh yeah, the phalluses. That was pretty funny.
That was not.
Oh, you're the one who constantly talks about phalluses every time we do a subject.
That was not signed off before she posted it. Okay, I had nothing to do with it, and I was like, "Ooh!"
As soon as I saw her, I was like, "Oh, Lisa's going to have this one." It's pretty funny.
Hang on a second. There's a couple of comments. So let's just say, hey to Mike at Tactical Bigfoot Research over on YouTube right now. We see your comments, and they're flying underneath there.
Yeah.
But also we've got on Instagram, well, that is weird. And he goes, I miss weeks and I come back to camel milking.
Who's that?
Well, this is weird.
Oh, well, this is weird.
Sorry.
Yeah, apparently that's a challenge that's been set for me, is to go milk a camel, because I want our business, I want Cryptid Women's Society to invest in camel milk.
been trying to get us to diversify. She was like, you know, look, the supernatural's great, ghost hunting, sure, but I think we should diversify from a business perspective, and I've got the perfect solution. And she said, here's a business proposal, and she sent it through to me, and it was literally, buy shares in this company. We do camel milk, and they milk camels and sell it. And I was pretty sure you can't fucking milk a camel.
Apparently you can. No, it is a growing industry here. So yeah, for any of you Americans who want to go and
invest.
Invest in camel milk. So yeah. So
anyway, we're talking about, oh god, that's so funny. Bhutan for the win.
Oh my god, yeah.
Anyway,
so
okay.
No, so it'll be fun. So I just hope to find a girl camel.
Well, yeah. Always find girl camel.
Otherwise, it's Lisa's job. Wow, this has started on a really low. We need to bring it back up.
Oh god.
Okay,
yeah.
let's start.
I mean, camels. Nice segue to ancient Egypt. Thanks. Yeah, well, that is weird. You're bang on. Oh my lord. Anyway, hey, so oh my god, the research, jeepers creepers, we could have jumped down some crazy wee rabbit holes. Feel free to interject and drop some comments in. I'm on Instagram at the moment, so I'll be looking through those comments 100%, and we're getting those comments straight up on the feed that you'll be able to see right now below. So if you jump over to YouTube, we can see your comments as they come through as well. But the research, right? There's so many theories. There's so much information. And Juliet found some amazing things on some females in the Egyptology space, which was phenomenal. And those will come out in the next couple of weeks on our Instagram posts and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if you're going into that today, Jules, but feel free to drop a couple in there.
I might do actually. I wasn't going to, but yeah, I will. So
and also, like, just know we don't know what each other's talking about, right? So we kind of just go, okay, let's do ancient Egypt, and we'll do the pyramids and go.
Yeah, and it's hard because like we're like, you know, we both absolutely love Egypt, and you know it's so exciting. So just trying to get the basics.
Like it's really hard to specify in a direction, right?
Yeah.
Like especially with a topic like Egypt, where there's so like just vast amounts of data and information and stuff. It's really hard to kind of go, okay, choose this direction or choose this direction.
Yeah.
You just like cover it all, right? But we've only got like an hour.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So,
well, Jules, right. you can kick it off if you want, or I'll do it, or
well, let's just start with kind of what the locals like, the thing about the locals. So there was always this theory that the Egyptian pyramids were made by slaves, and this has been like disputed, you know, in Egypt and by the local people. They're just like, no, the pyramids were not made by slaves, but basically by King Khufu, who basically was said to have paid his people. So they were skilled workers. There were hundreds of thousands of them. They were skilled workers, and they were basically building these pyramids when the Nile River used to flood. And so basically they would lose all their livelihood. They couldn't work, so they wouldn't get money. So he would pay them, and they would come, and they built the pyramids. And this is, you know, it's a very contentious thing because, you know, everyone's like, oh, slaves made it and stuff like this. But, you know, there's folklore and stuff that go back. And the Egyptian people were very thankful and very grateful for, you know, for him. And he paid them. You know, it wasn't like, oh, you're a slave, you can go do this. He was paid. They were paid. They were very well looked after. And they really love their kings. So it's so, you know, we've got to respect that. We've got to respect that kind of that background of what they're saying. And and it's a real thing of stop saying that slaves built it, because that is not believed even in Egypt. It's like, no, they weren't slaves, they were skilled workers.
Yeah, and that was something that we were talking about a while ago when we first kind of got into this, and we were just kind of spitballing ideas around.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I watched this documentary from archaeologists over there, and they were talking about the housing that they found, which was just north or whatever of these pyramids, and they were saying it was absolutely phenomenal. They were like, these houses show that the people, the workers that were here, were well looked after. They had good food, they had bedding, they had toiletries, they had all of these things. They were well looked after, and they were held in really, really high regard. And they did these because it was a privilege to work for the pharaoh or the royal family and do these privileged jobs.
Yeah. So it's so that's kind of like the main thing, that we have to respect that, and before we get into all the crazy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So skilled workers, it's that whole idea, and we go through this quite often talking about the Indigenous people through the South Pacific, and we're made to believe that the Indigenous populations are not as intelligent as us.
Not as educated, and not and educated, we mean not like a Western school system. We're talking about educated as far as survival and life, and what they have going on. Yeah,
and workmanship, and it really throws kind of spanners in the work when it comes to like the Iron Age and all of those things that were meant to happen around a certain time frame. Well, potentially these things happened a lot earlier. All you have to do is look at these amazing structures that these people over in Egypt and Sudan and around through the African continent have created. They are freaking phenomenal. Look at India. You're talking thousands of years, and they are amazing and beautiful. There was just to veer a little bit off real quick.
To the left.
A little bit. There was a video that came out of the hanging temples in India, where they're literally pillars that are hanging from the roof, and you can put silk scarves underneath them because they're not attached to the ground.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely mental. These giant single pillars, like all one piece of rock.
And how they lasted thousands of years, and you get builders here where the houses get condemned after 6 months. Exactly. We won't go into the Australian Building Society.
Yeah. Welcome to New Zealand, right? But it just shows you that what we're being made to believe is incorrect.
Yeah,
it's just incorrect as a whole. And I think it's really important, Jules, of what you're saying and bringing to light that these builders were skilled craftsmen.
Yeah. But one thing I did find, and I think this is where all these crazy theories and stuff would come from, is that there is not much records or many records of how they built the pyramid. And this has been the big argument. Because normally, like in Egyptian times, if they've done anything, there's been a really, really big record of how this was done, and and there's no real records of how the pyramids were built. So this kind of feeds into like the conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. Before we get on to that, let's, like, for people who don't know, let's just do a quick rundown of who built what.
Yeah.
So the Great Pyramid, like the biggest pyramid, it was built by King Khufu. So he was, he's basically the big famous builder. So the other ones were his sons. So the second pyramid was King Khafre. So or Khafari or something. So King Khafari. So his pyramid actually looks like the biggest one, but it's not. It's actually because it was built up onto a mound, up onto a hill. So that's why the middle one looks bigger. So it's not. I'm not going to bother going into sizes and stuff. I mean, that's just, So he was the son of King Khufu. He married his sister also, Ka-Menher-Men-Biti. So I'm not even going to say the rest.
I'm so glad you did that.
Okay, and perhaps 2 other kings. So King Khufu, not much is known about him, really. So they know very, very little about King Khufu. Khufu, sorry. So King Kafari, so he married his sister and they said possibly 2 other queens. They said, so although many of his other relatives and stuff were built in hastily kind of cheap tombs and that kind of stuff, his own pyramid was almost as vast as what his father has built. So he was kind of challenging his father a little bit there. And then the last one is Menkaure, King Menkaure, who is also his son. He is the builder of the smallest pyramid at Giza. He was married to Riketia. I'm just not even going to bother. I'm just going to destroy the words. Look on social media. It's all going to be there. So he's famous for building the last one. He was a very religious king, but he was also known for his great generosity. His people absolutely loved him. He also married his sister and his half-sister. And the 3, the smaller kind of pyramids are at the front. Oh my God, the name's just gone out of my head. But one of his queens is buried in this temple. So he actually died before his pyramid was finished. But because he was so loved, his son and successor, Shepscarf, I think his name was, actually completed all the work for him.
Wow.
Because he didn't want his father to be laying in this place. So, those are the 3 kings. And also there with Menkaure, right in front of his pyramid is the Sphinx. And they say that he is the builder of the Sphinx. So, which there's, again, it's very controversial.
Are we talking pre-Nefertiti dynasty?
Yeah.
Timeline. So Egypt was Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt.
Upper Egypt, yeah. I'm not sure where it kind of looks onto the timeline. I didn't really look into that. But it'll be, it will be pre. So
especially if he was quite religious, then because Nefertiti and Amun-Ra turned people into the sun god Ra and took all of
yeah. So so there's that thing about the Sphinx and stuff, and they're saying that the Sphinx is actually his face. So on our social, you'll see like we're doing all 3 pharaohs and stuff and putting up pictures and stuff of them. So there's a saying that the Sphinx is actually in his face, and so there's all that, but we all know like the stuff with the Sphinx and stuff. So it's
so that comes from an archaeological perspective.
That comes from an archaeological point of view.
This is the Egyptian Archaeological Society's narrative. Correct? Yep. So if you were to look at National Geographic or the Egyptian Museum or the government or anything like that, that would be the narrative.
Correct? That's the narrative. That's what they say. Yeah.
Right. Just to really everyone.
Yeah. So, but there is the other narrative is that the pyramids, and because everybody knows that the Great Pyramid of Giza is not a tomb. There's no tombs in it. There's nothing in it. So it wasn't built as a tomb. So, so this is, I know, Lisa, we'll just.
Wow.
So this is where we get into it.
Well, hang on. So hold on. Yeah. Go down that track. So there was never a sarcophagus found.
No.
But there were tomb-like structures. So there were like these kind of encapsulating kind of areas with what could have had a sarcophagus in, with the idea that potentially the pyramids were raided, right?
Yeah. So there's not a lot there, but I mean, so what they're saying is that the tombs were built before the Egyptians came along, before they started the pharaohs, and everyone kind of started in that area. So that is one of there's one of many conspiracies. Well, I won't say conspiracy, but one of many theories is that the pyramids were there. The Sphinx has been there for way longer than what anybody understands or knows. So that's just kind of like that one theory. So so it cakes into that whole thing of who actually built it, and this is where we come from. So it's really hard because with all the different theories, so there's kind of so if somebody built it before, who was it? Because there's no record of it. So does that go down the alien track or whatever? Or then there's like the theories of giants had relations, and I don't mean relations, but I'm saying they had a relationship. That's what they call it, a relationship with the Egyptian people, and they basically came and helped build the tomb and stuff like that. So, and the way that they did it is pretty much, from an archaeological point of view, they used ramps, they used water to basically.
So, what are some of these theories that the archaeological academia societies believe that these skilled workmen use to move on bricks? What are some of those theories?
So it was basically ramps. Ramps was not, they talk about, the ramps would have had to have been like 3 miles long or something like this. So, so that was the thing, is that, there was ramps and using water and other kind of things, just to kind of, because if you put water on sand, it hards it, and it's kind of, things can kind of slide over. So there's there's like a few different kind of theories, and the hoist, I suppose, to get the stones up into place. So and this is where a lot of it kind of really kind of clashes with what people think. So
well, I've seen a few videos on like Facebook and TikTok or whatever of modern people, like in the last couple of years, showing how they can move really, really heavy weighted stone into position using pulley systems and hoists and counterbalancing and that sort of stuff. So I guess there is evidence, and there gives credence to those theories.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could absolutely have been a thing. But how many blocks make up
the? Oh God, thousands. Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, it's close to like 160,000.
Yeah.
I think, and I could be totally wrong on that. I'm just going to.
It was built over like 20 years or something like that. So yeah, because the blocks were like, some of them were as heavy as 2.5 tons. Some of those blocks.
So there you go. Okay, so 200 more than 2,000. Sorry, more than 2,300,000 limestone and granite blocks were pushed, pulled, and dragged into place. 2 million.
So the heights along large ramps, they were greased by water or wet clay, and they used a system of like sledges, rollers, and levers. So that's what that was kind of.
I would think, like the narrative kind of you try and be you try and be skeptical on these other theories and try and make the theory or the narrative that you've been given work, right? So you go, sure, okay, I've seen these videos of people counterbalancing weights and moving things around and sliding things in place and blah blah blah. Sure, that works, but 2,300,000 blocks.
I think it was supposed to be built over 20 years or something.
2.5 tons per block.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the weight of a bus.
And you've got to get them there over water, and then
all of a sudden these holes creep in, right?
Yeah, you can understand where the alternative theories come into it. Absolutely. It's just like,
I find it very difficult when my brain starts kind of going, okay, I'm quite analytical. Okay, how would that work? And then how would that work? And I just don't see 2,300,000 more than that getting to the pyramids and then being made by simply people, essentially men sliding these blocks along watered sand.
Yeah, grease sand. And like you look into some theories of it, they talk about that they only worked like for 3 months of a year or something like that. So it all depends on what you're looking at, because it was basically they came and worked on it when the Nile flooded. So there were possibly people working on it all the time, but then most of them would come when the Nile flooded and, that kind of stuff. So,
and you have to look at the temperatures in Egypt as well. You're not going to get like a normal 12-hour workday that we get here because the temperatures are normal. So there's a lot of, the more you research into this sort of stuff, the more holes
Yeah. And you know, like different scientists say different things. Anthropology, you know, archaeologists say, they all say kind of like a little bit, everything's a little bit different. This one's like, oh, you know, they did it this way. Oh no, these guys did it this way. They, you know, so even, you know, even in the scientific fields, there's no real set thing. They still, you know, they still argue over like scientifically how it was actually built. Did they use levers? Did they use rollers? Did they use this? You know, how many people were actually used, how many years did it do? And you know, my thing is too is also, you know, if it did take 20 years to build, there should have been a shitload of hieroglyphics, of writings about it. There'd be so many different things that would be written about how this wall, and you know, things that had happened, or you know what I mean. So again, you know, so just on those different,
that's one of the main differences that they've found with the pyramids of Giza and then other you know, Valley of the Kings pyramids and the other temples / pyramids, is they're full of hieroglyphs, they're full of story, they're full of these sort of things, and the pyramids of Giza have nothing.
Nothing.
And that's a major issue, because what kind of king is going to build himself a big beautiful tomb and not adorn his legacy and his story in that tomb?
Yeah.
And I know that's a major difference between the pyramids of Giza. And I think that's one theory, or one reason to spawn off that theory of the pyramids of Giza were actually there previous to the Pharaoh dynasties coming in. And that's why they didn't have any of that stuff.
So we'll start with the other theories. I'll just go on to the giant one, because that's kind of, we'll kind of do the more normal ones till we get to the real crazy ones.
I love that you refer to the giant theory as more normal.
Well, we all know giants existed. It's just bloody everyone else is trying to say no, they didn't. So,
Jules, why don't you give us your info, and then I'll see what I've got.
Yeah. So look, like through the whole era of the Middle East, there's always been a really strong legend of giant humans. I mean, right back into, you know, we all know about the red-headed giant that attacked the SAS. Guys, I can't remember where that was. Can we remember? Kandahar. Yeah, so in Kandahar. So there are also references in the Bible which include Moses fleeing from Egypt after being attacked by the mighty Canaanites. So, which is current day Israel and Lebanon. Newspaper accounts confirm the reality of these giant tribes, and skeletons and bones of like enormous people have been unearthed all throughout the Bible lands. And also in like Africa and all around the Middle East, there's just, you know, a lot of science there. Like it's unfortunate like that we don't really get to see a lot of that, you know, because of various, you know, issues going on in the Middle East there, but it is just one of those things. But I found this really interesting video anyway. So this is from a lecture from an occultist and a Freemason called Manly P. Hall.
I love Manly P. Hall.
We do. So he does a thing about archaic legend recounts the Giza pyramids may have been built by a race of giants. He shared in his lecture with giantologist Christian T. Harris, and they did a YouTube video, so you can go and look it up. It's called Atlantis and the Gods of Antiquity. So it's interesting. He said, so now this is coming from their teachings and stuff like that. He says, we were told that in the year 820 AD, way back in the days of the glory of Baghdad and the great Sultan and follower and descendant of the great Al-Rashid of Arabian Nights, the Sultan Al-Rashid, I'm probably saying right, decided to open the Great Pyramid. He had been told that it had been built by giants who were called the Shaddai, superhuman beings, and within that pyramid and those pyramids, they had stored great treasures beyond the knowledge of man. So I just thought that was really, really interesting. You know, we all know the Freemasons and all their hoobie-jooby stuff. So, yeah, you know, and they are kind of, you know, we've got to give it to them. They do have access to a lot more kind of ancient texts and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure. Have you got any more on that, Juliet? Have you got the
no, like I'm just kind of going over briefly, so add to that as you wish, Lisa being the giant person.
Because I've actually got the full interview of this man from Manly P Hall, and I do have a little bit more to add on, so
go for it, go
he had been told that he had been built by giants who were called the Shaddai, the superhuman beings, and that within the pyramid and those pyramids, they had stored a great treasure beyond the knowledge of man. So taking his court with him, the Sultan went to Egypt and he stood and looked at the Great Pyramid. And at that time, all the casing stones were in place, i.e. those top casing stones that were made of, granite or diamond. The four walls were perfectly smooth. There was no visible opening of any kind. He didn't know exactly what to do, but he heard from legends where he supposed the entranceway was, and he began to dig there. And they had a very fine way of digging in those days, which I think we have improved on. They had to use either cold fills or coal and vinegar. So maybe coal and vinegar or cold something in vinegar to go through the stone, and essentially it eats through the stone.
Interesting.
And it actually goes into something else somewhere which I found. I'm just trying to figure out where I put it. And when they go through a certain way, they did find that they had come very close to an entrance, but a great stone blocked it and they could go no further. Interestingly, according to the Chronicles, in 852, Al-Mamun visited Egypt and examined the pyramid while it was still covered with a white limestone cladding. So remembering it was beautifully smooth, obviously some sort of conduction, right? It is also true that the casing stones were in place and fire and vinegar, there we go, were used to break through them to a tunnel in the pyramid. Still, there is very little detailed information about the Shaddai, which are the giants. According to some researchers, Shaddai is a Hebrew name of God. And get this, right? Hebrew name of God. Others are inclined to believe that the Shaddai is related to the Shaddad bin Ad, who was believed to be the ruler of the lost Arabian city of Aram and of the Pillars, which are obviously giants, right? And there's a really cool little wee quote here, and I'll finish on that one and give it back to you. The Akbar al-Zaman, also known as the Book of Wonders, circa 900 to 1100 AD, is an Arabian compilation of medieval lore, which we need to get, about Egypt and the world before the Great Flood. It claims that the people of Ad, or the place that we're talking about, were giants. So Shaddad was most likely one, and it is said he built the monuments of Dashur with the stones that had been carved in the time of his father. Ha! I just thought that was so cool. So interesting. So you don't have to search far to talk about how this theory of giants could have actually been real. All you got to do is look at Google.
I mean, like we're saying, there are still records. There are modern day records of giants being seen in the Middle East. There was like a video that went out. It was basically a bunch of guys. I can't remember where it was. I think it was in Afghanistan or something. They're all kind of like sitting around in this office, and then it literally turned around to this guy that was like 3 times bigger than everybody else, and he's just sitting there having a coffee with everybody else, and it was like, wow, okay, So there's so there's a lot of history there, and it's really cool. And I mean, they're not as, what's the right word without upsetting people, but it hasn't been whitewashed, is that the right word, and hasn't been kind of covered up by kind of like the Smithsonian and it's a lot of these museums and a lot of these older kind of people that were trying to save our conserve our history and stuff have actually destroyed it. And there's been massive cover-ups. So
100%.
Yeah. So it hasn't come from a Western point of view. It's still there. It hasn't had that kind of thing, and that's where it's fascinating. So definitely looking for giants is on my list, and any information and all that kind of stuff. If I could find that in Egypt and going around some like the little museums and that kind of stuff will be really, really interesting to kind of talk to the locals about.
For real.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got anything else on giants?
No, that's me for giants. That's me for giants.
Oh my
god. Okay, Lisa's
just trying to find my one little story that I wanted to tell you, and I can't bloody well find it. Of course.
Oh god, she's useless.
I know.
All right, so while she's looking for that, we'll go back to giants in a minute. One of the other ones is, which could have been used with the skilled laborers, is they believe that Egyptians used frequency and vibration, so acoustic levitation. So that is another one, so there's a lot of stuff like that, but it wasn't just kind of the ancient Egyptians, it was in Tibet, it's like the horns. So that, there's a lot of stuff there about using sound to levitate these giant bricks. Lisa's like,
God damn, I can't find what I'm looking for. It's so bloody frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, can we just hold on to levitation for a second? Because I'd love to talk about that as well.
Yeah. So
I'll give you a quick overview of the story, right? And I'm probably going to screw it up, and I damn well can't find it now. And sometimes the fairies just fuck with your shit. Anyway, so one of the stories I found that I thought was absolutely fascinating, right? And I read it to Juliet over the phone or over a video or something. And I was like, you have to hear this story because it's really, really cool. Anyway, so an explorer, and I'm just talking out of a hole in my head right now because I can't remember any names or dates, but an explorer essentially went and had a meeting with some locals that he knew had potentially come into possession of relics that they shouldn't have, i.e. grave robbers, maybe. But they came into this position, right? And he went to see this stuff to see what they had and see what these relics were. Anyway, so he said, please, can I have a look through your things? And he said, yep, sure, absolutely. So he started looking through the relics, and there was some coins and some other kind of pottery and bits and pieces. And then he found this piece of parchment or material wrapped up like oily rags sort of situation. He was like, oh, it's musty and it's old. I'll unwrap that. And inside he found a finger. That finger. Yeah, that one there. He found this finger, and it was like, a finger of something that had been mummified. It was decayed and everything. But the issue that he found was it was huge. He was like, the owner of this finger must have been 15 to 16 foot tall.
Yeah, once he had kind of done all the calculations of like the size of the finger compared to the hand, then to the rest of the body. Yeah, so
absolutely. So the person that owned that finger of whatever length it was must have been 15 to 16 foot tall, and that came from one of the tombs in Egypt, in Cairo, and I believe it was like north of Cairo that he met person. And it was amazing. That was back in 1940s or 1950s that this experience happened, and that's one of the saddest things about ancient civilizations is the amount of corruption, right? And not through the local people. I don't think you can blame the local people for trying to make money from their ancestors and their surroundings, right? Especially when there's not enough money, right? Especially when you're living in poverty because of the society that we live in. What gets me is the corruption from governments, academia, universities, the Smithsonian, museums, that go in and take these things and sell them to the highest bidder to private collections. And we know, and everyone else knows, and it's very, very clear that there are a lot of private collectors out there that hold on to things like that.
That stuff that could actually explain kind of, what we've done here.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, really frustrating in that sense. But yeah, so anyway, let's go on to levitation, because I love levitation.
Okay, you're going to levitation. I'm just trying to find for the social media. I did like the ladies. Where are the ladies gone?
Oh, well, you can't find them. I'll find them for you. Good luck finding those.
Yeah, I know. What'd you do with them?
So
she has moved my shit. Here we go. See what I fix that with?
Your shithead. Okay, so we talked about levitation a while ago. In fact, we talked about levitation through vibrational frequency and that sort of stuff when we were talking about the Veda files and the Veda manuscripts, because it all comes down to the same sort of ancient principles and ideas that the Indians had, the Egyptians had, the Aztecs and the Mayans had, and these ancient societies throughout time have all used, and not even to mention the Tibetan, Chinese, right? So all of these ancient civilizations have used sound to sound frequency, vibrational frequencies to levitate heavy loads and move them into spaces. So I was telling Jules the other day or a while ago that I watched a video like years ago of these Tibetan monks standing up in the hills of Tibet with these long trumpets, and they would blow these trumpets at certain frequencies, and literally they were like, this is how we levitate things up into the caves. They would make these monastery kind of spaces, and that's how they would get everything up there. They didn't bloody truck it up the side of a hill. They levitated it using their trumpets, and that is well documented. And so if they're doing it, then why the hell wouldn't the Egyptians use the same principle?
Yeah.
Correct?
But I mean, the sound stuff and the levitation stuff has been used like for years, like around the world. It's not just, there is kind of like stories and there's kind of history about it around the world using different, things, and like magic and stuff back into, when you go back into the European, like medieval history and stuff like that, they're saying that, some of the magic they used was actually came from sound. So, and sound and music and stuff, it's so powerful. People don't realize how powerful sound and music and stuff is, like the healing stuff, it's just, there's so much stuff there. So it's really something that needs to be studied, I think, or it probably has, and they're just not telling us.
Yeah, well, we were actually talking to Mike from Tactical Bigfoot Research the other day, and we were literally talking about didgeridoo, right? Didgeridoo is the Aboriginal instrument, essentially, that they use during their
ceremonies and dream time. Yeah,
absolutely. And what does it do? It gives you a low level vibrational frequency, which is melded into music and dance and everything else. It's been used for thousands upon thousands of years, and when you talk Aboriginal stuff, you're talking 60,000.
Oh my god, yeah.
And so it's definitely, and all you have to do is then look into Indigenous Native Americans, like exactly the same thing. They use music as sound waves to create something.
It's a really interesting concept, whether the Egyptians used it or not.
I've got a theory that the Egyptians used it. Hang on, and
tell us. Come on.
It's not actually a theory. So it's actually a testimony. So I was watching a television show with Joanna Lumley in it, and if you don't know, she's fantastic. And she was cruising the Nile, right?
I saw that.
She was on one of the long boats, and the gentleman on there who was taking her down the Nile, was talking to her about how long he had been on the boat and was this a family thing. And he was like, yeah, my father did this, my grandfather did this. We just go back generations. This is what my family does.
Yeah.
And then they got talking about, the pyramids and these blocks and how did they obviously get them down the Nile, because the narrative is that they took them down the Nile. And he said, oh yeah, we took them down the Nile, but we floated them, we levitated them in the boats. He said, otherwise they sink, they're too heavy. So he said, we levitated them. And she said, how did you levitate them? And he said, with magic, with the box, with magic.
Yeah.
And very, very matter of fact that is what they did. And I think that's one thing that really resonates with me. Every time we speak to somebody that is of that land and of that space, they are so matter of fact about how it worked.
Yeah.
And it's us Westerners that are questioning it, going, are you sure that's how it worked? Oh, maybe you've got it wrong. And they're like, we didn't.
But also what we've been fed is completely different to them, and to what they believe and what is.
But it's not even what they believe; it's what they've been told.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to question your uncle that says, "Oh, your mum used to blah blah blah"? No, obviously that's what happened.
Yeah, Uncle Khufu did it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But, that's it. Like, these things happen because these things happen. Why the hell would you make stuff like that up?
Yeah.
And I find it's such what we've been bred into, right? How we've been programmed. You have to question, because that simply couldn't be it.
Yeah.
Which I find ridiculous. But yeah, I thought that was just
which we instill into our grandchildren as well, because like Eli asked me something, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. And he goes, oh, we've been told this at school. We don't believe everything you've been taught, mate. I'm like, well, for a start, that is not right. And I'm like, okay, he's 6.
You may only be 6, but I'm going to start you right.
It was some history thing. I'm like, what?
That's not right. I literally.
Cool. Hey, listen, I'll just introduce you to one female pioneer into Egypt, and then we'll go on to the crazy alien stuff. So I found these 3 very, very early 1900s Egyptologists, these 3 women. So they're pretty amazing. There's a guy who's done a book about it. Toby something. Anyway, so I've found it. Yeah. So I've got Hilda Petrie here. So this woman, like, I read her story and it infuriates me, and you'll understand why. And just, man, she just did so much and just pretty much got no credit for it. She was born in 1871 in England, and she died in 1956. So she was a female pioneer, and she was just completely ignored. Her husband was Sir Flinders Petrie. So he was known as one of the founding fathers of Egyptian archaeology. So it was such a big thing back in the early 1900s and 1800s. They would all go over to Egypt, and there were, these explorers and these men and rah. So along they come. So every excavation, everything that he did, she was there by his side. Now there's like amazing photos and all the stuff of her climbing rocks and everything. But not so. Basically, throughout his career, not only did she raise all the funds to assist her husband, so literally she was selling information and archaeological stuff and books and stuff to raise money for the war as well, and for people and stuff like that. She literally, every artifact, now you think about it, so these white Englishmen are standing there, they're getting everybody else, all the workers to go in to dig everything, to bring it up. He looks at it and goes, wow, this is amazing. And then it was basically passed to his wife, who literally cleaned everything, drew everything, measured everything, took down all the information, wrote it down, and then she was literally the one that put his books together and all his papers and she did all the information, got sent off, and he got the credit for basically all of it. 97 books she basically wrote, and out of this 97 books and over 1,000 articles that were around the world. I mean, they were there for years and years and years.
Yeah.
She was literally mentioned pretty much once in his book, and that was so what happened. So one of the very few mentions was Flinders Made was relating to an incident which happened on a dig. A man came in at dark and shot at close range at the first person who was out of the mess hut, and it was her. And he goes, happily she escaped, end of story. So that is the really only acknowledgement she ever got for all the work that she did.
Yeah.
So it's just, but she did end up producing 2 books of her own called Egyptian Hieroglyphs of the First and Second Dynasties, and that was done in 1927, and the 7 Memphite tomb chapels in 1952. But she basically wrote his books for him. She basically did all his articles. She did, back in that time, it was, like the social media side of stuff, like the radios and the newspapers and all that kind of stuff. She did all of it. And but he's the one that got the acknowledgement for absolutely everything.
Yeah. And there's movies, what's the River Cruise or whatever it is, movie that has The Rock in it and a couple of other actors.
Oh yeah.
It's exactly the same sort of idea where she wants to be a treasure hunter and archaeologist, and she needs a man to do
it. Yeah.
So the person you're talking about, Juliet, was Toby Wilkinson.
Toby Wilkinson. Yeah. So he's written a book. So we've done that as one of the books that we're going to put up. And he's talking about the very, very early explorers of ancient Egypt. And about these amazing women. So check it out.
Just read the little blurby, eh? So he wrote a book called A World Beneath the Sands. And so A World Beneath the Sands tells the riveting stories of men and women whose obsession with Egypt's ancient civilization drove them to uncover its secrets. Travelers and treasure hunters, antiquarians and archaeologists, whatever their motives, whatever their methods, all understood that in pursuing Egyptology, they were part of a greater endeavor to reveal a lost world buried for centuries beneath the sands.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it talks about Egyptian women that went into the local harems, and another one where, one of them, she used to camp out on top of the pyramid. And they've been shot at and all sorts. So it's pretty, it's really, really interesting. So go check it out. But I mean, and if you're interested in early Egyptology and stuff like that as well. So and it's very interesting, the book, the pictures that come out with these books, and you're kind of like, oh, okay. So it's really, really cool.
That's very awesome.
Really cool.
Nice. Let's talk about aliens.
Oh my God, aliens. Here goes Lisa. Wow, aliens. Okay. So what can we say about aliens? I mean, I haven't really put much down about aliens, just to the pure fact is that, did aliens build the pyramids? Did they, Lisa? What do you think? Did they?
So basically what I went into was, there is a gentleman that I absolutely love, and I think he's got the goods, and he's an Australian, right?
Okay.
And I just think he knows what he's talking about, and I really, really enjoy his journalism. Anyway, so I put 2 things together. Okay, these are me pulling threads and tying them together into a really, really strong rope. So we've been talking about the Sphinx and whether or not who built the Sphinx, why we can no longer go into the Sphinx and excavate. We know that there's a trapdoor on the top of the Sphinx, on its head. We know that in the early 1900s, Egyptologists actually did go inside it and found a whole heap of different tunnels and things like that going underneath the Sphinx as well. And that's well done.
Water, apparently. There's water under there.
Yeah. And so something that kind of It's not quite alien, but we get to alien. Just bear with me. Bear with me. I don't want to go straight to alien, but you know, kind of just walk around the outside for a while. So let me read this to you. This is from top tenz.net. 10 ridiculous theories, ancient pyramids, Giza. So the nearby Sphinx actually has an alien spaceship still awaiting underneath. And I thought, what if it does have an alien ship underneath? So I just want to read you this, and then I'll show you what threads I've tied together and if it's a real theory. So it says many mystical groups and occult orders. Of course, let's put those words in there because it's obviously a cult. Anyway, over the years have been fascinated with Egyptian magic and pyramids themselves and the entire surrounding area. You can see that this is quite biased. Some have gone to the trouble to channel with spirits in an attempt to learn things about the past traditions of ancient Egypt. Fair cool. And have come up with some very strange ideas. Biased. According to some theorists, sorry, I don't like this article much. I'm not sure why I chose it. According to some theorists, a sort of poem that occultist claims come from the emerald tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. And if you don't know the story around the emerald tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, you should look into it because it's very interesting. And Manly P. Hall that we mentioned earlier has got a lot to do with that as well. They suggest that there is some kind of strange ship buried underneath the Giza Plateau, beneath the Great Sphinx to be precise. The poem essentially claims that there is an actual spaceship under a lion-shaped figure out in the desert, and that if the ship is dug up from the ground, its power will allow the user to conquer with ease. We all need that. The occultists are convinced the poem translated from the tablets, which only one person ever saw, proves that an alien or advanced being of some sort actually left a spaceship buried under the ground. While the idea is incredibly bizarre, it would also be difficult to disprove, yes, as the Egyptian authorities are not about to let anyone excavate the entire ground underneath the Great Sphinx. So this is where I started tying some things together.
Okay. So just on that note, so the Egyptian government and stuff have stopped any excavation to do with the Sphinx. So they're saying it's to preserve it and everything. And just when you're talking about Atlantis and stuff like that, so they also believe that under the Sphinx is a hidden library called the Hall of Records, and that contains all the very, very early records of Atlantis and our unknown history. So,
yes, there's many, many theories around that as well. Okay, cool. So let me tie a thread. Oh, that was such a nice little side thread there. Well done, you. So the gentleman that I absolutely love, his name is Ross Coulthard. And if you have not heard of him, you should go and look him up. His last name is spelt Coulthard. He's an Australian investigative journalist. He has been throughout CNN and American news reports and that sort of stuff, talking about UFOs, ancient history, things like that. You probably recognize him if you heard him. So let me just read this to you because my little kind of spidey ears pinged up and went,
little antenna. She's actually an alien herself.
Connection. Anyway, so I'm going to read this to you. A UFO hunter claims a giant spaceship too big to move is currently being stored away under a major landmark. Ross Coulthard told the Project Unity YouTube channel, some of these objects are not capable of being moved because they're too bloody big. He's Australian, remember?
Yes,
yeah. The non-human craft is being hidden beneath a purpose-built structure, he claims. The Australian author of In Plain Sight, and if you haven't seen that book, go and get it. You can get it for free on the Internet Archives. Internet Archive, you can get it for free. In Plain Sight by Ross Coulthard. bloody interesting. And sorry, here's the author of that. He said, I know exactly where it is. I thought it was bollocks when I heard it too. Coulthardt's claims have sparked a frenzy within the UFO hunting community as they desperately try to figure out the location. The non-human craft is being hidden beneath a purpose-built structure, he claims. There are a number of theories among the community, with some believing the wreck could be in South Korea, while others say it's more likely to be stationed at an air defense facility, which would make sense. Or in plain sight, like the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower or the pyramids of Giza or the Sphinx.
Or what about, were they the natural wonders of the world, or the not so natural wonders of the world, are basically, boop, boop, each one's got an alien ship underneath.
Absolutely, yeah. Coulthard has made headlines previously, most recently back in June, by interviewing a whistleblower who alleged the US military had a number of crashed craft and even the bodies of crew members. David Grush's claims have been taken very, very seriously. We all know, if you're in the ufology space, then you know David Grush, who came out with the backing of the Defense Force, the American Defense Force. More so, so Coulthard said, I beg your pardon. Speaking during an appearance on Sky News Australia, he explained why the footage of the objects that he'd seen, i.e. the UFOs, he said, I had interviewed pilots from the east and the west coast of the United States, and that had been in training exercises, and they were literally looked across the cockpit at these aircrafts, and they'd seen spherical objects on their flight wings. He's been in the UFO industry for so long. He's interviewed pilots, Air Force admirals and captains, naval operators. And so he found this information out from an interview he did with a gentleman from SETI, which is an acronym for the what does it stand for?
That sounded so weird. Totally being taken over by aliens. The reptilian. Wait, watch your eyes.
Watch your eyes. Intelligence. I can't remember what it was bloody called.
I do worry about her sometimes.
Often. Anyway, so those are my connections, right? And I remember listening to the interview that he did, and he said the gentleman that came out, the whistleblower that came out, wanted to stay anonymous and did not want him to share the site, because then it would just be taken over by ufologists and people and that sort of stuff. But basically he said it is in plain sight, but it is not in the US. It is not in America. So where is it? Under the Sphinx. Those are my friends, which tied up a nice little rope. What do you think? That's a good theory, right? Is that the same ship that we're talking about from Thoth the Atlantean on the Emerald Tablets via Manly P. Hall?
Yeah. And it all goes back into the conspiracy too, of that we actually came here on ships, but we've basically just forgotten our history. It's changed. And that these ships and stuff are still here somewhere, so are they our own mothership?
Well, it's very it's very Men in Black, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, but it is. There's always this thing that we all know. It's like all of a sudden, hey, we've come from monkeys. I'm like, no. Well,
no, I think we know that that's bullshit. And especially after doing Lemuria and Atlantis and the continent of Mu, we're very, kind of well versed on that now. And I think our belief system changed quite dramatically in kind of where we came from. And so then it gives credence to go, well, the Egyptian dynasties were long after the Atlanteans, were long after the Lemurians reigned, and the Avalonians and the continent of Mu reigned. You're talking thousands of years after.
Well, they're talking about the Lemurians being the first ones here, because they weren't a physical body, and then came the Atlanteans. So so people even they think, oh, Atlanta was first. It wasn't. It was the other way around. Lemuria was.
And so if they're bringing ships down and then putting them in specific places for later,
yeah,
then later, then that does give credence to the theory that the Sphinx was already there, and they've found another Sphinx on the other side as well, of the Giza Plateau. And so it does give credence to that theory that the Sphinx were already there, the Giza Plateau was already there, and in fact they are not tombs for the pharaohs. They are energy producers, or they are chemical producers, or they are a housing project for something else, right?
Yeah.
So I found that as like a really interesting little tie together. If you want to build a theory around that, please feel free, send it to me, and then I will be on board.
She would love to know.
Relatively easily, to be honest.
Yeah. It's really, it's really interesting. And we hear about archaeologists and anthropologists and all these people and other scientists going in and finding stuff and going, hey, I found this, and then it basically, it's either shut down or there's a lot of controversy over certain sites that have been found and certain sites that are still lost to us, but most of us believe that they're not actually lost to us, they're just being hidden.
They're being taken, yeah. And look, the research that I kind of bumped across was a couple of really interesting kind of what do you call it, like almost Reddit threads, but on different platforms, of people that claimed or alleged to be in the archaeological industry, and their stories about going to Egypt and essentially being told that they were not allowed to talk about anything they find. They were to go with the narrative, and otherwise they would be risking life or death situations.
Yeah. Or they're basically destroyed within the media within that field, and all you have to do is kind of look at people who have been in these fields, and not just for the Egyptology, but for UFOs, for cryptozoology, for paranormal stuff. There's many people within these fields which have come across and gone, hey, I've got this information, and they've either ended up dead or they've been discredited and basically publicly destroyed. So it's really, and that's like we say, these people are waking up, and it's like these are the people that you should be kind of looking at and going, okay, what are they saying, or what were they saying? And it's keep your mind open. We're not saying that it's all true, but definitely keep your mind open. And that's what we say. We put out these theories, and we come across this information, but it is totally up to you to make that decision onto what you want to do. So.
Yeah. And like I said to my son this morning, actually, he was talking about the election on Kamala Harris versus Trump. Mum, who do you want to win? And I said, well, first of all, I'm in New Zealand. It doesn't matter. And number two, I said to him, when it comes to things that you want to believe in, things that you want to make truth or ownership over, you have to dig a little bit deeper so that you don't just take the icing on the top of the cake. You want to
especially coming from the media. Oh my God, what's the
and and it doesn't, it's irrelevant of what you're hoping the outcome to be. You still have to go a little bit deeper, and you're not talking much. A little bit of research shows the truth out, and then you can make right decisions for what is real, instead of just going
and what you feel is right for you. It's we're very lucky. We do get a lot of kind of bits and pieces of like the American elections and stuff over here. We don't really talk about really political and religious stuff, but it's really what I find really disheartening for the American people is how damaging it is between families and stuff. Whereas in New Zealand and Australia, you can have somebody from each different party living in their house. You'd be like, go do your voting. You have like little silly arguments about it, but that is it.
Yeah, it's more.
It's not taken to the point where it destroys families, it destroys relationships, and that's kind of something that we don't comprehend. We don't comprehend that in any way, shape, or form.
And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. That stuff should never put so many divides within your relationships. Don't allow it to.
Yeah, it's just because you have a different opinion. It's like you like white, you like black, you like green, you like peppers. I don't like peppers. And that's basically all it is. And you just kind of go, yep, that's cool. That's what I'm going to do. So,
and I think that's the same process around the theories that you have around, are UFOs real?
Are they not? Yeah.
Just have your own theory and work on that, and then find those like-minded people. And it's not about you're wrong and I'm right. It's about, cool, okay, so show me what's going on here. Maybe there's snippets of this that I can take.
Or why do you disagree? Or what how can you prove it? Or what's your thing? And you go, oh, okay, cool. Lisa and I don't always agree on stuff, but we respect each other's decisions. So and that's what it is. And then we just throw shit at each other.
And she just puts phallus stories online.
You should see what Mike just sent me. I'm going to send it to you. Tactical big butt.
Honestly, this story.
It's going to be a special new house for her, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, hey, I need to tell you before we go, really important breaking news.
We forgot. Oh my God, that was going to be our beginning. That was going to be the start of it. Yes.
So we are so excited to announce that our friend Brittany Barbarelli, and if you don't know her, go and find her, Brittany_investigates. You want to look for Lost Monster Files on Discovery, which is going live on October the 9th. This is her new series. She's being taken around by a couple of other boys, or maybe she's leading those boys, I imagine, going on some cryptozoology searches. Basically, what they've done is they've found these missing files from Ivan Sanderson, who was the founder of cryptozoology as we know it now. Over 30 years, he went around the world and compiled these files with this amazing information all about cryptozoology, species of animals that were crazy, that nobody thought were real, like the platypus, which is absolutely insane animal.
Yeah. And they're podiki, I think it was. Yeah, they're podiki. Yeah.
Which was a cryptid,
cryptids.
Ivan Sanderson, and basically they've taken these files and gone, let's make an amazing cryptozoology series about it. Discovery has picked it up, and they are going live on October the 9th. So please show Brit some love. Jump on her Instagram, Brit_investigates, and please share the Lost Monster Files on Discovery. You may see one of these beauties on there. You may not.
Yeah. And then you have to tell us about it, because we probably won't get it for the next 3 years.
Yeah. We're going to try our best to watch it, but in New Zealand and Australia, we're not going to get it for a while. I think it streams in November. So if you miss it on Discovery in the US, you'll be able to watch it in November. But it's going to be phenomenal. And the more we can support our amazing cryptozoologist friends in this field, the better it is for everyone, because the more money comes in, the more funding comes in, the more research grants come in for all of us.
And the more people are aware of it and aware of it, because we talk about people on the fringe. And, there are people that are really wanting to know about this stuff, but they don't quite know how to get into it, so having programs like this coming, there's paranormal programs coming out of our ears. So people are like, yeah, we're getting on board with all the paranormal stuff, but cryptozoology is, is a very kind of limited field. And the more we kind of get out there, it'll be fantastic.
When we promote it and grow it benefits everyone. So jump on, you'll see lots of posts coming up about the Lost Monster Files, and so please share as much as possible, and let's make this one really.
And we are so excited for her, so proud of her, and it's amazing. So
and all things considered, Brit is one of our founding members, if you didn't know. So she is totally associated with Cryptid Women's Society, and who knows, maybe we get her down south to
come look at some South Pacific cryptids. It could be something in the works.
Yeah, it's so cool. We've got lots of other things cooking in the kitchen at the moment. So keep an eye out on what's going on. You might see a couple of little reels coming out with Juliet in them. I know, amazing. She's like, oh, crap, what have I done?
I should have filmed the big huntsman. It wasn't a huntsman, we had a big wolf spider in the dog bowl this morning. The kids are screaming their heads off. I'm like, I'm having a shower. Just get out the shovel.
Hey, Juliet, do you know what we're talking about next week?
Gods and monsters and hybrids.
Oh, yeah.
So hybridization within Egypt, Anubis and Horus, and all of those kind of creepy weepies. The Minotaur, I think, will probably be in there, even though it's more of a Grecian thing, a Greek thing. But yeah, we'll pull them on over.
It's gonna be cool because you know what, Alex Jones, and I'm not a big Alex Jones fan because he's a bit crazy town, but he comes out with some really interesting information. He really gets receipts on the information he's dropping. He's just come out with hybrids through US labs where they're hybridizing human cells into cows.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. So this again kind of brings on the alien side of stuff, and with the aliens kind of building and being the gods, and and all that kind of stuff. So
we'll probably talk about Sumerians as well. Exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they were all part of it. So again, it's just kind of connecting the dots, making those like little connections. So we are pretty excited about doing that. Yeah. So gods, monsters, and hybrids are next week. So
yeah, awesome. Leading up to that woman's trip. So yay. Thank you everyone for your amazing support. I'm sorry. In fact, we are sorry if we didn't get to your comments on Instagram. It doesn't show up on the feed that we're streaming on. So please jump over to YouTube. Then you can comment if you want. You'll find us at Cryptid Women's Society over on YouTube, and then we can see your comments and we can respond to them.
Yeah, the Instagram ones are being kind of, I don't know, they just seem to be a little bit slow. And they're just
jump on YouTube, jump on YouTube, and then we can do it over there, and it'll be heaps of fun. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, bye. See ya.
Oh, we love you.